Hi guys, what's up? It's Alex here. Today we are here with Joe to talk about Renault's 2016 chances. Would you like to say hello?
Hello there, I am Joe, also known as Just Chipmunk, and yeah, it's a pleasure being on here to talk to you about Renault or Lotus, or we didn't even know what to call it.
Yeah, whatever they're called.
Just one of those.
So
it's interesting.
Literally today, as we're sort of making this 28th of January, we're making this video. Maldonado could be in some crisis.
Yeah, it's not looking good for him or Alex Gillen or WTF1. Because, if there's no crashes, then what's going to happen with Alex Gillen? And WTF1 is primarily based around Maldonado. So, yeah, it's not looking good at all, is it?
I mean, Maldonado, he did bring some entertainment, let's be honest.
That's the thing, yeah.
2015 was one of the most boring years ever, and he crashed a few times, which, we don't want to. We say we don't want to like to see crashes, but Maldonado,
it's fine. No, I think. Without Maldonado, I think I saw Justin say something, or fake Ghost Pirate saw on Twitter the other day. He said, without Maldonado, it's so much less drama going on. It would be even more boring. And I tweeted something similar today as well. Without Maldonado, fair enough, he's an awful driver, and fair enough, he causes a lot of collisions and death, pretty much, because there's just so much destruction everywhere. But without him, there wouldn't be that sort of element of, oh yeah, Maldonado's behind him though, so. You don't know if they'll make it around the next corner, sort of thing.
So, if Maldonado does leave, we're saying, do you think Magnussen is the number one choice? Maybe when this video is up, people might already know. But
yeah,
as we're making this, would you say Magnussen's the number one choice?
I think he is, only because he had such a strong, or reasonably strong season in his first year at McLaren, didn't he? He was reasonably competitive with Button, who obviously has a lot of experience in McLaren.
Yep.
And obviously he had his podium in the first race, didn't he? But that was apart from that, it's his only podium, I believe. So It's sort of like, I don't know, it's a risk, but obviously him being a young driver and being probably one of McLaren's future drivers, I don't know if he's tied into a contract with McLaren, but I don't know if he goes to Renault, will that affect his contract with McLaren?
I don't know whether, maybe I didn't see this. I thought they terminated his contract at some point towards the end of
I think I remember seeing that, yeah.
So I think he's free to do whatever he wants, but yeah, I don't think he'd ever want to go back to McLaren if that was the case.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that Renault really, get their arse into gear with it all, because when they had that season with Kubica and Petrov, they weren't actually a bad team, and obviously when they had Raikkonen and Grosjean in the first year Raikkonen came back, and the second year as well, sort of, they were quite competitive, weren't they? They weren't really off the pace compared to, say, this season, where they only got one podium, I believe, which was Grosjean in Belgium, I think the only one.
Yes.
And then obviously last season they weren't that competitive either. But I would really like to see where Renault are, because with the whole Renault controversy with Red Bull especially, it's quite interesting to see where they'll be at the start of the grid and everything after testing, especially. So
I mean, even if they had an engine as bad as last year, I can't see them being behind Manor.
Yeah, I think that would be embarrassing if that was the case.
Yeah, or Sauber, to be perfectly honest. I think Sauber probably aren't really too great. But so there's gonna be points, I think, for Renault next year. It might be, lucky points, but alongside Palmer, what do you think of him? Obviously GP2 and that, he dominated that year pretty much in 2014.
Yeah.
And then he sat on the sidelines. Do you think he's good enough for Formula One?
Well, I guess we'll find out.
That's true. That's true.
I think we will definitely find out, because we've had these people coming through. Like Ericsson was reasonably good in GP2, I believe, and he came in at Caterham, didn't he? So he is now at Sauber. He didn't have the. I think did NASA beat him this season?
Yeah.
I think he did. Yeah. So he's not had the greatest couple of years coming into F1, but I think Palmer, if anything, is one of the stronger people who have come in from GP2, definitely being the champion by a long way. I think Van Dorn, when he comes in, it'll be a pretty similar situation, but even better. And also, Maldonado came in from GP2 as well, and Hulkenberg and people like that. So I think putting him in a mid sort of table team isn't really that bad of a thing, because if you put him in one of the lower teams like Manor, or if not Caterham anymore because they're not obviously going, but those sort of lower tier teams, I don't think we would have seen the full potential of him, because it's really just competing with your teammate, isn't it? I mean,
exactly.
So I definitely think there'll be a test for him and how good he is, because we'll see maybe whoever, because I think there'll probably be like the last point scorers position sort of thing, maybe 7th, 8th. So it'll be really who sort of gets the most points between him and whoever's with him.
I think,
But
yeah, as you say, if it is, well, Vern was another name you sort of said before we started recording. So if it was Vern, Magnussen, or Maldonado who partners in next year, or sorry, this year, all of them are going to be a good benchmark because all of them have an F1 experience, obviously.
Yeah.
Maldonado being the most experienced, maybe probably the least good. But
what are you talking about? We won a race.
That's true. Yeah, it's really weird. He's such a weird character in Formula 1. Like, how can you win a race so amazingly,
I know,
and then
be in a wall next moment?
Exactly.
I just think he's one of those drivers that everyone offends and has a go at, and he's sort of, when people are like, "Oh, Maldonado, what are you like?" sort of thing. I think he's one of those, like, because obviously he's got talent. There's no question about it, but I just don't think he uses it. I think he just spends all his time putting his talent into crashing into people, that he just has no talent for racing. I mean, obviously he had that win in 2012 Spain, and took that away from Alonso, didn't he? So, there's no question about it. The Williams wasn't the best car, but he still pulled it out of the bag. So I think it's, in a way, bad for F1 if he does go, but not bad for the racing, bad for the entertainment point of view, because we don't know how good 2016 is going to be for F1 entertainment-wise.
I mean, let's be honest, it could be even worse than last year if Mercedes have got a bit even bigger advantage. I mean, hopefully it doesn't happen, because
hopefully Ferrari will catch up.
Because if Mercedes are dominant again, I mean, the viewing figures are on the slide anyway. So
yeah, we don't want that at all.
So what would you say? Do you think there's a, you said 7th, 8th. I'd agree. It's probably really where they're maybe. Yeah. Do you think there's a chance of a podium if they can sort of get some sort of glimmer of hope? I mean, Grosjean obviously had that great race in Spa, didn't he? He didn't obviously have a top 3 car, but it went his way. Do you think if the car is about 6th or 7th, do you think there must be an opportunity somewhere down the line where they'll get a podium or a chance?
I think there's always a possibility with races, especially when other things happen to other drivers. So, for instance, in Singapore we had Mercedes really low down the field. I think there's always possibilities for races like that, which can really bring the best out of the other teams. So, for instance, obviously Spa, Grosjean got that podium. Lotus weren't the best team at all. They were, I'd say 4th or 5th best team on the grid, sort of, lower down like that. So to get a podium, I mean, that's just incredible, because apart from that, I think, did Sergio Perez get a podium as well? He was one of the sort of midfield runners who also got a podium, but no one really significant apart from that consistently got podiums. I know that Toro Rosso didn't get a podium. Force India, obviously, they got a podium with Perez. I'm not sure about Hulkenberg. I don't think he got one.
No.
But I definitely think there's opportunity. I think if Renault can really kick it in the teeth, but, really get to the gritty bit and do what they need to do and be where they need to be, I really do think that they could pull the stops in some ways, depending on what the track is, obviously, if it suits the Lotus car. If it suits the drivers, because Palmer's not driven an F1 car before. He might have done testing and stuff, but he's not actually driven a proper Grand Prix before an F1 car. And, Jev or Magnussen, obviously having good experience, they'd be ideal candidates to bring in, I think, one of those two. Maldonado's had some time now, both in Lotus and in Williams, so I think now it's sort of time to pass the baton on. Hopefully not destruction-wise, but pass that baton on to someone who could really pick it up. So,
I mean, obviously a good thing for Renault is that they are the main supplier of their own engine now, aren't they? They're sort of like, it's like a Ferrari or a Mercedes. They've got an engine that's built by them, so hopefully that gives them the upper advantage. I mean, who else is using a Renault next year? Is anyone? Oh,
well, Red Bull obviously have the Renault Tagahauer, whatever you say. That's their branded engine apparently, but that's just a Renault engine. So Renault wasn't in everyone's good books this year, were they, with the engines?
No.
So it's gonna be crazy to see where they'll be with the engines if they can actually just maintain reliability. Because let's put it this way: if it's worse than Honda, then they've got a problem. From last year, especially. If they've got a worse reliability than Honda, then, they may as well pack it in, because Honda aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Well, this year, we don't know, but last year definitely weren't. So I think Renault, they could really, if they could work on the engine and make it a strong engine, then, being up there with Ferrari, and McLaren have said that they've got something like 200 horsepower more in their engine this year or something.
I cannot believe that, but
yeah, it's just mental how they've said that. But then again, they made statements last year that they had like jet fuel engines. They're like, yeah, we're going to come in by race 10, we're going to be so far around the track we could just stop for a cup of tea. But they didn't do that at all. Obviously we saw what happened. They were probably 3 laps behind everyone else, not in front of them. So I don't know if they're just talking out their arse, but we'll have to see what happens because Renault have a potential. I know that definitely because Renault were suppliers for Red Bull when they won the constructors and the driver championship, weren't they? I think.
Yeah,
I believe
4 times in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So they've got potential. It's just they need to use it because I think everyone can have a bit of a blip season where they just don't know what's going on. But it's just consistency. They had that 4 years where they were just dominant. Mercedes have really pushed it this year and last year. So I think it's going to be interesting, definitely, to see what will happen when we get to Australia.
I always feel when we talk about the Renault engines, that sort of stuff, I always feel that Christian Horner sort of forgot what Renault gave them in a way, and he just sort of, as soon as it went bad, he was like, "Nah, I don't care about you anymore."
He is just so whiny. Like, I don't know what it is about Horner, but if he doesn't get his way, he's like, "Oh, well, we're quitting." He throws the toys out the pram. He's like, "No, I'm not having this. We're quitting now." But like, he had 4 years where he was just completely dominant, and then when Mercedes have 2 years when they're dominant, that's half the time they had. Yeah, he still gets mad about it, about Renault. And Mercedes back then, they didn't have a great car. Well, they did when they were Brawn back in, obviously, 09. But, that time from 2010 to 2013 time, they didn't have a great car. They were good qualifiers, but not so good in the race. That was mainly down to the engine they had. But Mercedes never complained. And Ferrari, being a Ferrari fan myself, we've had this massive time without a championship. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I'm not. You don't see, what's his face? I can't even pronounce his name. Arabiani or whatever his name is.
Ferrari guy.
Yeah, exactly. Ferrari. Yeah, I don't hear him complaining. Most of the time, he's just happy to get a decent result. And Renault should be doing this, or Red Bull should be doing the same thing. But I think Renault, if they can have that engine, they could really push Red Bull, especially. I think that'll be their main contenders or main championship rivals this year, probably Red Bull. Obviously, they don't have Adrian Newey designing the cars, but to be up there with Red Bull, if they can actually sort of contend with them and beat them, then I think that'll be a good season for Renault if they can beat Red Bull in the season.
Yeah, so that's the only sort of, they can mark them obviously against each other, the drivers, and then I suppose Renault sort of engines with Red Bull are the only people you can really look at. I suppose when you have lots of teams using the engine, it's sort of, in a way it's good because you can get as much information as possible, but it's kind of bad for just having the sheer pressure of giving all those updates to every single person. I suppose it works both ways, but anyway, I've rambled on about that, sorry.
It's alright.
What would you, if you just had to throw it out there now, where would you say Renault will be at the end of the season, like Constructors and Drivers' Championship?
It's really hard, isn't it, to pick where they'll be because the season hasn't started, testing's not started. If I throw something out there now saying they'll be like the 4th best team on the grid, they could be the best team on the grid. I mean, that's probably not going to happen. They could be the best team on the grid. They could be the worst team on the grid. Being worse than Manor would be an embarrassment, but we don't know where Manor will be because they're Mercedes, aren't they? So, this season has definitely thrown it out there with Haas coming in as well. This is really one of the most upcoming hyped seasons. I think. I don't know if it will deliver race-wise and entertainment-wise because the past few seasons haven't been great entertainment-wise. But if there's a contender with Mercedes, that could definitely boost the sort of viewership for Formula 1, I think, and people would watch it a lot more. But I think Renault, it's really difficult to know where they'll be with that engine, but I'd plant them, say, the 5th best car. I think they'll be 5th in the Constructors, 4th maybe. It's anyone's game, really, isn't it? So. And
drivers, would you say either, if they went with Maldonado and Palmer, do you think either of those would get in the top 10 in the championship? With a top,
I think they should bring Will Stevens in.
Yes, lad, that is a great idea.
Will Stevens and what's his face?
Palmer?
His teammate, Roberto Merry. Bring Merry in as well, why not?
That is just a dream.
Bring in that Spanish money, or where Will Stevens brings in that pork pie money from Britain, doesn't he?
I really don't know. I'm really confused how Will Stevens has a seat, to be honest. But
I don't know. I don't know what he actually contributes. What's his sponsorship?
I don't know. I don't know if Mary's either.
I don't think Mary brings in maybe some paella or something. Spanish. I don't know. Is he even Spanish? Because it just sounds like a Spanish name.
He is. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Because I think paella is Spanish, isn't it? Maybe there's a paella sponsorship somewhere out there. Maybe someone sponsors him with paella or something. I really don't know, but I think that definitely, Magnussen will get there ahead of Maldonado. I think that Palmer will keep his drive. So I think it will be Magnussen and Palmer, but I don't know who'll be testing for them. I have to see.
Yes, so yeah, that's pretty much it, unless you've got anything else to add.
No, nothing really. I think we've sort of gone over everything, haven't we?
Yes.
It's been really good.
So how many subscribers are you at on your main channel now? We'll try and give you a bit of a boost.
I've got 4,200 last time I checked, actually. So it's going pretty well at the moment, and I'm enjoying it.
That's good. Let's try and get you 4,400, or maybe a bit more.
Oh, thank you. There's no need to help me.
No.
Like, you know, I feel like this is a charity going on.
No, I've done it with everyone else, so you have to have it as well. Alright, so I appreciate you coming and helping me out with the video.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Alright, so guys, thank you for watching. It's been Alex and Joe Alvey. Goodbye.
Goodbye.